My brother stole our inheritance and lied to everyone about it, so I waited 2 years, then bought the house he thought he'd inherited. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and my parents always taught me that family comes before money. That phrase was practically a family motto, something my dad repeated so often it almost lost meaning until it didn't. Growing up, I believed him. Our family home sat on 3 quiet acres, surrounded by oak trees, the kind of place that felt timeless. My mom kept a rose garden she was fiercely proud of, and my dad always said, "This house will be your start in life. Boys, we worked for it, so you don't have to struggle like we did." Back then, I thought my brother Eric and I were close. He was the golden boy, charming, athletic, the kind of person people naturally trusted. I was quieter, more reserved. While he chased parties and popularity, I spent my evenings helping Dad fix fences or learning how to balance accounts at the kitchen table. But even as kids, I noticed the imbalance. Eric always got first picks. First to drive the car, first to choose gifts, first to be excused when things went wrong. When I questioned it, Mom would sigh and say, "He's your older brother, sweetheart. Let him lead." I tried not to resent it. I told myself love mattered more than fairness, that family loyalty was sacred. Every birthday, every Christmas, every small success was tied back to that promise. Whatever we have, we share. My parents' words became the glue that held my faith in family together. But now, when I look back, I can see the cracks were already forming. Small moments that seemed harmless, a signature here, a casual excuse there, were the beginnings of something much bigger. I just didn't realize that the same promise meant to unite us would one day be used to tear everything apart. And the first real fracture began the day my father got sick. It started with a phone call I'll never forget. My mother's voice trembled as she said, "Your dad collapsed at work. They're taking him to the hospital." I dropped everything, work, errands, plans, and rushed there. Eric was already in the waiting room, pacing, his face a strange mix of fear and control. He didn't even look at me when I arrived. "Mom's a wreck," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Let me handle the doctors." For weeks, everything blurred into hospital visits and whispered prayers. Dad was weak but conscious at first, always trying to reassure us. He even joked, "Don't let Eric talk you into anything stupid while I'm gone." I laughed. But something about the way Eric's jaw tightened stayed with me. As Dad's condition worsened, Eric started stepping into his shoes, paying bills, managing the land, talking to lawyers. "Just until Dad's better," he said. I didn't question it. He was older, more confident, and I wanted to believe we were working as a team. I focused on supporting Mom, who seemed too fragile to face the reality that Dad might not make it. When the inevitable happened, when we stood over Dad's grave as autumn leaves fell around us, I thought the pain couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Days later, Eric called me to the lawyer's office. "We need to go over Dad's estate," he said flatly. I remember walking in, expecting sadness. Closure, maybe. Instead, the lawyer pushed papers across the desk, explaining that everything, the house, the land, the savings had been transferred solely to Eric. My name wasn't on anything. I blinked, convinced it was a mistake. "No," I said quietly. "Dad wouldn't do that." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "Your brother assured me this was what your parents wanted." They both signed the updated documents. I turned to Eric. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And right then, I realized the man I trusted most in this world had already been planning this betrayal while our father was dying. After that meeting, I walked out in a fog. My mind couldn't process what just happened. The will had always been simple. Everything split equally. That's what my father said 1,000 times in front of both of us. Yet somehow, Eric had changed it. And worse, he'd made everyone believe it was my choice. It started small. A few relatives called after the funeral, offering condolences but with an odd tone. "We heard you didn't want the house," one aunt said gently. "That's really noble of you, letting Eric take care of things." I remember gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "I never said that." She hesitated. "Well, that's what Eric told us. He told everyone I'd refused my inheritance, that I didn't want the burden of managing property or taxes. He painted himself as the responsible older brother, the one who stepped up when I backed out. The story spread like wildfire. Within weeks, I went from being the quiet, dependable son to the ungrateful one who abandoned the family legacy. Even my mother looked at me differently. When I tried to confront her, she sighed, "Honey, I don't want to fight. Eric said you wanted to keep things simple. Maybe it's for the best." Her voice cracked, and I knew she wasn't sure what to believe, but she didn't want the conflict. That hurt more than losing the inheritance. I remember standing outside the family home one night, staring at the windows glowing with warm light. Eric was inside hosting a dinner for relatives, smiling, laughing, the hero of his own story. And there I was, the invisible brother, erased not just from the will, but from the truth itself. That's when something inside me hardened. I didn't have proof yet, but I knew Eric had forged more than signatures. He'd rewritten our family's history, and I promised myself I'd find a way to expose him, even if it took years. The weeks that followed were a blur of numbness and disbelief. I stopped answering family calls. Every conversation felt like another stab. People congratulating Eric on taking responsibility, while offering me pity I didn't ask for. I'd walk through the grocery store and overhear whispers from neighbors. Poor kid. I heard he didn't even want his father's house. It was like living inside a lie I couldn't wake up from. I tried confronting Eric once. I drove to the house, our house, and found him in the driveway, washing his new car. It was sleek, expensive, something Dad never would have approved of. "We need to talk," I said. He didn't even look up. "About what?" "You made your choice." His tone was casual, rehearsed. My hands shook. "You forged that will, didn't you?" He smirked. "Careful what you accuse me of, little brother. People might think you're bitter." Then, without missing a beat, he added, "Dad trusted me because I handled things like an adult. You should try it sometime." Something inside me snapped. "You stole from me, Eric. From us." He finally looked up, wiping his hands with a towel, eyes cold. "Then prove it." I left before my anger made me do something I couldn't take back. That night, I packed up what little I had left and moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. I couldn't even bring myself to drive past the old house anymore. Months passed. My savings drained fast. Depression crept in like a fog, quiet, suffocating. I'd wake up in the middle of the night replaying every detail, every signature, every word Dad ever said. I felt useless, defeated, but silence does strange things to you. It hardens you. It forces you to listen, not to others, but to yourself. And deep down, beneath the pain, I heard a voice whisper something I hadn't felt in months. Wait, because maybe. Waiting was the only weapon I had left. For a long time, waiting was all I did. I worked long shifts at a warehouse just to cover rent and food. Every dollar I earned felt like a reminder of what I'd lost, of the home I'd been promised but never got to keep. I'd see Eric's photos pop up online sometimes, parties, vacations, a new truck all paid for with what should have been both of ours. Each image burned, but I didn't comment, didn't confront. I stayed quiet. I was learning something my brother never had, patience. Then, one evening, during an overnight shift, I met Mr. Lawson. He was an older man, retired, but still helped manage inventory for fun. He was the kind of person who asked questions that made you think. After a few conversations, he learned my story, or at least the clean version. He didn't pity me. He just nodded and said, "Then stop letting him write your ending. Build your own." That line stuck in my head for weeks. Mr. Lawson started showing me things: how property values worked, how to recognize undervalued lots, how to save smart. He lent me books on real estate, investment, and small business strategies. It was like learning to breathe again, slowly, intentionally. I started saving. Every extra shift, every side gig, it all went into a quiet fund I didn't tell anyone about. The nights were still lonely. Some days, the bitterness tried to creep back in. But I found a strange comfort in planning, in the idea that someday, maybe, I could take back what was mine without begging or stealing. I didn't know when or how, but I started to believe again, not in family, not in fairness, but in myself. And then, 2 years later, the universe handed me something I never expected, an opportunity wrapped in poetic justice. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of ordinary day that changes everything. I was at work when my phone buzzed. It was a message from a friend who worked at a local real estate agency. "Hey man, thought you'd want to know. Your old family house just got listed." At first, I thought he was joking, but when I opened the link, my breath caught. There it was, our house, the one Dad built with his hands, the one Eric had stolen with lies. The listing was real. Owner relocating due to financial difficulties. I just sat there staring at the photos, my mom's rose garden, the porch where Dad used to read the paper, the oak tree we climbed as kids. It felt unreal, like seeing a ghost. The description mentioned urgent sale. I called my friend immediately. Who's handling the deal? He told me it was one of their firm's senior agents and offered to connect me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Eric had clearly overextended himself. The cars, the parties, the lifestyle. He was selling the one thing he swore would define his success. And now, fate was giving me the chance to take it back. But I wasn't about to make it easy for him. I contacted Mr. Lawson, my mentor, and laid everything out. He listened quietly, then said, "If you're going to do this, do it right. Don't buy it as his brother. Buy it as the man he underestimated." We moved fast. Lawson helped me set up a small investment entity under his business network, a clean, professional front. The plan was simple, discreet, legal, and poetic. Within days, we made a formal offer on the house. Fair market value, all cash. The seller, desperate, accepted almost immediately. Eric had no idea who the buyer was, and for the first time since my father's death, I smiled, because justice, it seemed, was finally knocking on the same door he once slammed in my face. A week later, I drove to the property for the inspection. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel the entire ride there. The road felt the same every turn carved into my memory from childhood. But the moment I turned onto the gravel driveway, something inside me shifted. The house looked different. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, and Mom's once vibrant rose garden had withered into brittle stems. It was like Eric had drained the soul out of everything my parents built. The agent greeted me and began the tour. I walked through each room in silence, my footsteps echoing through empty halls that used to be filled with laughter. I paused in Dad's study. His old desk was still there, the one we built together when I was 14. Dust covered its surface like a shroud. I ran my hand across it and whispered, "I'm taking you home, Dad." From the window, I saw Eric's truck parked crookedly by the shed. My chest tightened. He was here. The agent noticed the tension in my face and said, "Don't worry, the owner won't be present for the final signing." But fate had other plans. As I stepped outside to leave, Eric appeared from behind the house, phone pressed to his ear. He froze when he saw me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then his mouth twisted into a smug grin. "Didn't think I'd see you around here again," he said. I smiled, calm and steady. "Yeah, I figured I'd stop by." "Old memories," he shrugged, pretending not to care. "Well, if you're looking to buy, better move fast." "Got a few offers already." I nodded, concealing the truth. "Good luck with that, Eric." Then I turned, walked back to my car, and drove away, heart pounding with a mix of fear and dark satisfaction. He had no idea he'd just tried to sell our father's house. To me, the sale closed faster than I imagined. Paperwork moved smoothly, signatures finalized, and within 2 weeks, the deed officially listed me as the new owner of my family home. I didn't tell anyone, not even my mother. I wanted the truth to land exactly where it needed to, right on Eric's pride, 2 days after the deal closed. I got a call from the agent. "The seller is coming by to collect his last belongings," she said. "Do you want to be there for the key handoff?" My pulse quickened. I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. "I'll be there." When I pulled into the driveway, the late afternoon sun hit the porch just right. Warm light spilling across cracked wood and flaking paint. I remembered Dad sanding those boards by hand, whistling as he worked. My throat tightened. I almost turned back, but then I saw Eric's truck roll up. He got out, wearing designer sunglasses and fake confidence. He froze when he saw me leaning against the doorframe, keys in hand. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded. I smiled, not smug, just calm, waiting for the new owner. He frowned, confused, until realization slowly bled across his face. No way. He looked past me toward the door, then back. "You didn't. I did," I interrupted quietly. "Cash offer, legal, clean. You sold me our father's house." For the first time in years, he looked small, cornered, powerless. "You think this makes us even?" he said, voice trembling. No, Eric. This isn't about even. This is about truth finally coming home. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned away, jaw tight, eyes glassy. He didn't say another word. As he walked down the driveway, I caught my reflection in the window. Older, harder, but finally, free. And yet, as his truck disappeared, I realized justice wasn't as satisfying as I'd imagined, because peace still felt out of reach. Owning the house didn't bring the peace I thought it would. For the first few nights, I couldn't even sleep there. Every room whispered ghosts, my dad's laughter in the hallway, my mom humming while cooking, Eric bragging about things he never earned. The house felt heavy, almost resentful, like it remembered everything that happened inside its walls. Then Mom called. Her voice was quieter than usual, strained. "Eric came by," she said. "He told me you tricked him." I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. "Of course he did." "Did you believe him?" I asked. Silence stretched on the line. Then she whispered, "I don't know what to believe anymore." That hit me harder than anything else. I'd spent years rebuilding my life, teaching myself patience, waiting for this moment, but hearing the woman who raised me sound so lost made the victory feel hollow. I drove over to see her that evening. She looked smaller somehow, older. When I walked in, she held an envelope. "He showed me copies of the will," she said. "He said it was Dad's dying wish." I sat across from her and told her everything, the forgery, the lies, the years of manipulation. At first, she just shook her head, refusing to accept it. But then I showed her a copy of the lawyer's correspondence, dated months before Dad's passing. Her hands trembled. "He said it was for simplicity," she whispered. "He told me you didn't care." She started crying then, deep, uncontrollable sobs that made the room feel colder. "I failed you," she said. "I believed him because I didn't want to see what he'd become." I held her hand, and for the first time in years, she looked me in the eyes with something like clarity. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." I wanted to tell her it was okay, that we were finally past it, but I couldn't because even though I had the house, the truth, and the paper proof of my brother's betrayal. I'd never felt lonelier, and I didn't realize it yet, but that loneliness was about to change everything. After that night with Mom, I stayed at the house. At first, it was just to fix things, broken hinges, cracked tiles, peeling walls, but slowly, I realized I wasn't repairing wood and paint. I was repairing something inside myself. Each hammer strike felt like a small act of defiance against everything Eric destroyed. I stopped checking his social media, stopped tracking his life like some unfinished story. Instead, I poured my energy into restoration. I repainted the living room, the same warm cream color my mother loved. I rebuilt Dad's old workbench. Even the garden, once choked by weeds, began to bloom again under my hands. Neighbors would stop by, surprised to see me. One of them said, "Feels good to see that house alive again." I just nodded, not sure how to respond. Meanwhile, word started to spread. People began realizing the truth that Eric hadn't been the hero of the story after all. The realtor who'd helped sell the house mentioned his arrogance, how desperate he'd been for cash. A few relatives quietly reached out, apologizing for believing him. But I didn't correct them or gloat. I was done fighting ghost stunt then. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the oaks, I found myself standing on the porch, breathing in the scent of fresh paint and roses. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel heavy, it felt peaceful. Eric's downfall was inevitable. His business deals were failing, his reputation crumbling. I didn't lift a finger to stop it. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's the quiet endurance of watching the truth unravel on its own. And yet, just when I thought the story was finally over, a knock on the door reminded me that closure rarely comes so easily. When I opened it, Eric was standing there, pale, thinner, and completely broken. For a moment, I thought I was imagining him. Eric stood on the porch, shoulders slumped, dark circles under his eyes. The man who once smirked his way through every lie now looked hollow, stripped of arrogance. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. His voice wasn't sharp or commanding anymore. It was small, human dot. I hesitated, every instinct telling me to shut the door. But something in his eyes, maybe shame, maybe exhaustion, made me step aside. He walked in slowly, looking around as if the walls might judge him. "You fixed it up," he said softly, tracing his hand over the banister Dad had built. "It looks like it used to." I didn't respond. We sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where our family once shared Sunday breakfasts. The silence was heavy. Finally, Eric broke it. "I messed up," he whispered. "Everything fell apart. The house, the money, the business. Mom won't even speak to me." "You earned that," I said flatly. He nodded, not arguing. "I know. I lied to everyone. Told myself I was doing it for the family, but really, I just wanted to be more than I was." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out, I'm nothing without the things I stole." I wanted to feel satisfaction, to hear him admit it, and finally feel vindicated. But all I felt was tired. He looked up, eyes glassy. "I don't deserve forgiveness. I just needed to tell you that I'm sorry." The words hung between us, fragile and uncertain. For years, I imagined this moment with shouting, tears, maybe even revenge. But now, I just sat there, looking at my brother, the same boy who once built treehouses with me, now broken by his own greed. "You can stay here tonight," I said finally, my voice steady. "But tomorrow, you leave. This house isn't yours anymore. Not the walls, not the story, not even the memories." He nodded, tears slipping down his face. "I know." And for the first time, I saw not the man who betrayed me, but the one who'd finally punished himself enough. Eric left the next morning just as quietly as he'd arrived. No dramatic goodbye, no lingering looks. Just a nod, the kind that carried years of regret. I stood on the porch, watching his truck disappear down the road that led away from everything we'd both destroyed. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just an ache, the kind that comes after a storm finally passes. In the days that followed, I spent time with Mom. She was healing too, little by little. We sat on the porch drinking tea, watching the sunset light the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "Your father would be proud," she said one evening. I looked at her, surprised. "Not because you won," she added softly, "but because you didn't become like him." That hit deeper than I expected. I'd spent years defining myself through Eric's betrayal. Waiting, planning, proving. But now, I realized something simple. Revenge gave me justice. But forgiveness gave me peace. I started turning the house into something more. The extra rooms became transitional housing for young people aging out of foster care, a cause Dad always cared about. The garden became a community space again. Slowly, laughter returned to the house. Not mine alone, but shared, alive. Every corner carried memories both painful and sacred. I left Dad's old study untouched, his photo still on the wall. When I looked at it now, I didn't see the sadness of what was lost. I saw the strength it took to rebuild. Sometimes I think about Eric. I don't hate him anymore. He taught me something I never would have learned otherwise, that inheritance isn't about money or property. It's about what kind of person you become when everything is taken from you. So, when I sit on this porch, hearing the wind through the oaks, I finally understand. He inherited the house once, but I inherited the lesson. And that was worth more than anything he ever stole.